Hello. Thank you for coming back to watch another video of mine. I know a couple of things from my last video. My camera is really crappy quality, and I will be getting a new one probably in the next couple of days. And I also need a tripod because currently you are balancing on multiple volumes of Sherlock Holmes and Harry Potter, and it's a bit precarious, so hopefully you don't fall over because that would be bad. And I also realised I'm an idiot and forgot to put in fact number 8 in my last video. So that is that I play the ukulele. That is that. So now we can move on with this video, which is my journey with cancer. And everyone calls it a journey with cancer, and it is a journey because it's bloody tough, but it's sort of just become my life because I've been dealing with it for 7 years now, and it's sort of the before and after. You sort of have the before life, and then you have the afterlife, and you know, after post-traumatic event, and you don't know exactly where you were before or what your mindset was before. So one thing I do remember was being in year 3, so that would be grade 2 in Canada, so I'd have been about 5 or 6 years old, probably 6 years old, and a little boy in my class was diagnosed with a tumour, and no one really understood what was going on. They were talking about, oh, we'll go and have picnics with him, you know, when we visit him in the hospital, and he unfortunately died extremely quickly. That was sort of my first experience with cancer. I remember at the school assembly the headmaster stood up and said, does anyone here know anyone with cancer? And at the time there were no hands raised. There's maybe 2 or 3 people who had their hands raised, but in a school of, it must have been 200 students in there, no one had ever experienced cancer before, and I just cannot believe just the increase that there's been. I mean, now you'd ask everyone, everyone seems to know someone with cancer or who's had cancer, and it's really scary and sad, but that was my first experience with it. They built a giant fort playground thing in his memory, called it Fort Joshua, and since we were his classmates we were the first to go on it, and it just seems weird that playing on it then and thinking, you know, what this is an unusual thing to happen, I'm now dealing with it myself. So then my mum's friend was diagnosed with cancer, and my mum ended up passing away once we moved to Canada, but they were best friends. And Mum said, you know, lightning doesn't strike twice. My camera decided that it would just shut off and do whatever it wanted, and now I have to recharge it, and yes, and the flower thing in my hair has broken. So we've done a wardrobe change too. I was up to the point where my mum said lightning doesn't strike twice in terms of cancer, and obviously it did. She got cancer first time 7 years ago when I was 13, and unfortunately my mum had a mastectomy, and then I went back to school, and 2 or 3 days after she had a mastectomy my dad had a quad bike accident. So that wasn't a good going back to school thing, but things ended up working out alright. That's kind of how we work in our family. It's bad luck comes in threes with us. She underwent the full chemotherapy, radiation. At this point we were living in Alberta, and she was living in Medicine Hat, and she'd have to stay up in Calgary and then come home on weekends, and we, you know, basically went, I think it was a month straight without seeing my mum, which is, you know, you need your mum. So they said everything was fine, everything looked good, and when I was 15, I was just going into grade 10, she started coughing, and I've always been really intuitive with my mum. I knew when she was going to tell us before she even told us she had cancer the first time, because she said go downstairs and watch The Simpsons and eat some cookies, and I knew something was going on. I could tell. She came out of the doctor's office and I could tell something was wrong, and I just knew. And I just said, Mum, go and get this checked out, this isn't good. And she had fluid in her lungs, and there was cancer in her sternum, and so it had obviously not all been killed, and it ended up spreading. July 15th, 2009, I remember everyone was up in arms about Michael Jackson's death, but my mum had been talking about having headaches and being sick before she went in for this thing with my dad, and they came back and I could just tell that things were bad, that I thought it was going to be a brain tumour, and it was, unfortunately. It wasn't really a tumour, that it had metastasized all over her head, and it wasn't looking good. So she kind of continued taking chemo, continued doing all that as normal. We wanted to keep everything as normal as possible, so we did go and do our yearly trip to go to Ontario, but even the boat moving on the water would hurt her head, and it was difficult. She had to stay out of the sun, she had to do lots of different things, and I could tell that she wasn't happy, although she did have a great laugh, having a drink with her friends. That's kind of how I always remember my mum. Not saying she's an alcoholic, but she did like a glass of wine. I also remember on that holiday talking about doing a cruise at New Year's, and our friends were going, oh yeah, you can come along, it'll be really great. And my mum just sort of said to me, Beth, we don't know how I'll be then. I might be in a wheelchair, I might be, I might lost my vision, we don't know what will happen. And I sort of thought that, oh, we have time, we can always do these things. And obviously it turned out to be wrong. November 24th, 2009, I went in to get a CT scan because I had been getting headaches, and the same day that I went in and got my results that there was a tumour, my mum was admitted to palliative care. She'd lost the ability to do things for herself, she'd lost all the functions, she was kind of, I always explain the process of your grieving in steps with someone like that, because you lose them piece by piece. Her eyes glazed over, she still had a sense of humour right till the end. She was, we were kind of the party ward in the palliative care thing, because we brought in Peking duck for her, we brought in wine, we put on music, and you could see people walking by going, what's going on in there? But that's just how we've dealt with it. You're not going in to see a cancer patient, you're going in to see your friend or your mum or whoever, so go in and do what you would normally do. We decided as a family not to tell her, so she never officially knew what was going on, and at this point we were told that it looked benign. So my mum never knew, but I've been told that she asked my friends how my scan went, because obviously she's still my mum, so she was still thinking about what was going on, and my friend luckily said everything's fine and there's nothing to worry about, so she died in peace. December 8th, I came home and my aunt Linda was over from Australia, and she said it's looking really soon. And at this point I'd stopped going to the hospital to see her. I hadn't been in for about 4 days, because it was just, I basically already said my goodbye, and I'm glad I did it when I did it. I just held her hand and told her all the things, that she was a lovely mum, and there's still, as I grow older, I think of more and more things that I wish I could share with my mum, now that I understand the sense of humour more, and I would have loved to have been partying with my mum, but there's nothing that I regret not doing with my mum. We always, we shared everything with each other, so there were no secrets between the two of us or anything, so I just basically thanked her for being such a fabulous mum, held her hand, and she basically was able to, she could just open her eyes and look at me, and I knew she had heard me, and that was basically the indication that I knew she had heard me, and she understood. You could just tell by the look in her eyes that she understood what I said. And sure enough, we got the phone call. Grace and I didn't go, Dad and my Aunt Linda did, and she died that evening, and Dad just came home and said she's gone, and we all sat and cried together. But we're not sitting and crying and grieving for a prolonged period of time family. My mum's motto, it's Churchill, but my mum started using it. He just said, you know, keep buggering on, and or if you're going through hell, keep going. We go by that. We don't, you know, even with my MRIs, I get told that I have a tumour back, and we're cracking jokes and whatnot, and I mean, as I said, I really have a morbid sense of humour. One of the things with the Beth's brain thing, I'm thinking it's Beth's brain, and you sort of always get a little bit of extra. You never know what's going on in there, and there's always a bit something extra from the back. Or I say things, oh, you know, the tumour's always at the back of my mind, you know, because that's where it is, at the occipital lobe. So we sat together and I watched The Lion King, which is basically my comfort movie, but now I find it really difficult to watch it because I watched it when my cat died and when my mum died. So there's two things that are obviously really upsetting and traumatising. So once my mum had died, we had a celebration of life, we played all our favourite songs. At the end of the thing, everyone got up and they all had a glass of wine and we were all dancing to Dancing Queen. That's how my mum would have wanted to be remembered. I always think it's really silly that people have a funeral after someone's died, unless it's a sudden thing. But if it's something you know that's coming, I think why not do it ahead of time, sort of do a live wake, and so people can come along and you can see the people, because all of her favourite people and family and friends were there, but she wasn't there, the guest of honour was missing. So I'm actually thinking that if I get to that point, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have a big Beth day, big Beth celebration. And that sounds a bit narcissistic, but I'm just saying it because, you know, it makes sense to me that you want to go and see the person you love when they're alive rather than when they're dead. So I had my first surgery January 21st, 2010, and it was removed, and then when they looked at the tumour and did the pathology and everything, it turned out to be a grade 3 anaplastic ependymoma. I've had so many terms chucked to me that it's frustrating. It gets a bit overwhelming. And that has the life expectancy of 2 years. So the fact that I'm still here is good, because I actually went up a grade. I was at grade 3 and now I'm at grade 4, and have possibly even reached a new grade that isn't technically out there, but it seems to be behaving more aggressively than normal. So I guess I've graduated to grade 5. That's the one that I had the most conventional treatment for, I guess up until now. I did radiation, and as I said, I had it was under my hair at the back, so the hair there is sort of a little bit softer, but no one noticed because I had all this other stuff to cover it, wigs. And I found out that when my hair's short, it is really, really curly, and I had a big bunch of hair right here that was Shirley Temple curly, so that was a bit weird because I didn't think I was a curly haired person. But they offered me chemotherapy, but my dad was in contact with several doctors and oncologists and said to them, what do you think about this? Because it was maybe it will help, but it's looking unlikely that it will help. So he spoke to them and they said if it was my child, I wouldn't do it. So I didn't do it. I just thought I'd rather not be losing my hair and throwing up, and especially if I've had 3 oncologists say, you know, that they offered it at the hospital, but I had the other 3 saying I wouldn't do it if it was my child, so I turned that down. I had tri-monthly scans, so every 3 months I'd go in, be put in the MRI. I think it's nearing 20 MRI scans now, so it doesn't bother me anymore. But now there's sort of a negative stigma attached to it, because there's only sobs when I go in and I get good news. At the beginning it was a lot easier because I would be, oh yeah, nothing there to worry about, nothing there to worry about, nothing there to worry about. And then March, just after I turned 18, in 2011, and the bugger was back. My dad did research because they said it's gone up, it's worse, it's at a grade 4 glioblastoma, so that's I said, great, I have to learn a new term. I literally just got my head around anaplastic ependymoma, and that's what it for. Even not, there's bigger name than that, but then I had to learn glioblastoma is a little bit easier to learn though. But glioblastoma multiforme, and that is the worst one to get. It's extremely aggressive, not good, nothing they could do. They said they could put me on a mild chemotherapy, but they were basically saying at that point, you're gonna kick the bucket. But my dad is stubborn as hell. It's a Hutchinson family trait. I'm stubborn, he's stubborn. We're so stubborn that we fight with each other about the same thing sometimes, and neither of us are backing down even though we're both on the same side. He got on the internet and started researching, and on April 20th, so 4/20/2011, while most people in Vancouver were down at the art gallery smoking a joint and enjoying cannabis, I was told by my dad at the dinner table that he thought I should start taking cannabis. I thought he was kidding. I mean, whose parent comes to you and goes, yeah, you should start doing that, you should start doing this regularly? And then he actually showed me the research, and it was unbelievable.